I like to address things and go to the deepest level possible. So first, we have to remember that it's Father's Day, but we are all fathers. And I certainly don't believe in the gratuitous, I have to now call my dad to say Happy Father's Day. I don't really believe in any of that sort of thing. What I believe in, when it comes down to, if you have a human father, obviously, that's on the earth still, just to think in terms of honor the honorable parts. When we say honor our mother and father in the Bible, Jesus kind of describes it a little differently in what's called the Essene Gospel, where he says it's honoring your heavenly father and your earthly mother. And then there's another reiteration, which is honor the honorable parts of any father, not just your daddy. All we do is rent our parents. That's all. That we borrow them, and that's it. Thank you. I needed the genetics of this particular line that would bring up certain issues and lessons for me. Thank you. Bless you. There's nothing more that we really have to deal with in that. You don't have to feel forced, guilted into calling mom on Mother's Day. In fact, if I were your mother and you didn't like me, I wouldn't want you to call me on Mother's Day. Honestly. Do what you love and love what you do. And if you have issues with your parents, work on healing those issues. Okay? Work on healing those issues. Bring them a healed child. If you want to honor your father or your mother, be an honorable child too. Not just look for the honorable parts of a father or mother, but be an honorable child. So people get a little bit twisted around these kinds of topics. There's people I know that won't come to spiritual services on Father's Day or Mother's Day because they're afraid they're going to hear something about dad or mom and they feel it's unhealed and they don't want to deal with it. You don't have to be afraid of that stuff. I, for one, would never shame you for having issues along those lines. I would just say, would you like to work on them? But it's totally understandable that not all of us are celebrating and saying, wow, Father's Day, when in fact our fathers or mothers have been very hurtful at times. And it's not for everybody, but that has happened a lot on this planet. What's really sad to me is, in a way, we have human fathers. And fathers are considered masculine. In God, there is no masculine or feminine. We use it as a metaphor, father, mother, God, or the father aspect of God, mother aspect of God, but that's all an illusion. In God, there's no real gender. But one of the problems we have is that as above, what's the next part of that sentence? So below. And vice versa. So one of the things we do is when we have a strained relationship with a human father or human mother, we then project it on God. And if we have issues with God, we project it onto our parents. Because as above, so below. As within, so without. So the ideal thing is to bring harmony to our relationship with God, the Father, as well as the cosmic Father, the universe, as well as our human Father. Because there's three fathers. Father aspect, the divine Father, the cosmic Father, which are the stars, and then the human Father. But if you're out of touch or out of sync or out of love with any one of them, it will bleed into all the others because they're all a reflection of Father energy. When we listen these days on, nice, somebody's channeling. So it's okay. So when we, it's Sedona. So when we live our day-to-day lives, listen, just open your ears, and it's not, almost every day you're going to hear some anti-masculine comments being made. Father stuff, and too masculine. It's time for the feminine and all this. See, that's still a war. That's still unhealed people. Anybody that thinks we must manifest the divine feminine is also saying, let's get rid of the divine or any other aspect of father or masculine. But as soon as you try to get rid of one, you're going to create more of that polarity, the movement of the pendulum back and forth. If you have issues with masculine and you think you're much better because you're so soft and feminine, but you resent the masculine, you're not so soft as you think you are. Your resentment is brewing inside. And if you're ultra masculine, harming the feminine, your day will come to have to deal with that. We all have to come to peace. No masculine, no feminine. But let the pendulum swing less and less and less unless until I am that I am. You know, do you remember, you know, Moses saying, are you a man, by the way, or a woman? You know, God would have said, I am that I am. God would have said, are you kidding me? You know, I'm just paraphrasing, but that's what God would have said. Seriously? Are you a man or a woman? But in a patriarchal time, people just assumed that if men are so much ruling the earth, God must be a man because it rules the universe. This is just human craziness. All it is just human thinking. There is none of that in reality. However, while we're on earth, we have to be, you know, we have to learn to come to peace with these things. Not all feminine is the extreme judgments we can put on feminine. Not all masculine is the extreme masculine judgments that we put there. Not all men or women are what we project them to be. If you have an inharmony with masculinity, you're going to see it in the world. And if we ignore it too much, it's going to manifest as the President of the United States. So that you can't ignore it. Hi, do you have male issues? Vote for me, you know? I mean, you know, seriously. We can share our opinions, but at the end of the day, guys, the spiritual laws, they're either true or they're not. You can't adopt spiritual laws now and then. You can't, today I believe in this law and tomorrow I don't. That doesn't make sense. The law of mirroring is a law. And what we see outside reflects inside. So you can't hate people away and think your issues are healed. Let's look at them. You know who some of the most annoying people on this planet are, in many of our opinions? Reality show stars. They make celebrities out of these reality shows. They make celebrities out of the craziest, goofiest, weirdest, most dysfunctional people. So what we could do is say, you know, what we ought to do is if one of us could just step into position at those TV networks, we could stop those shows. I beg to differ. They're ridiculous, and I wouldn't bother watching them. However, I am aware that they're there for a reason. Those people are not in our face for us to wish they were gone. They're bringing up issues for us to see. You know, this is all about us learning lessons, us saying goodbye to issues. So it's not about just forgive them for being the insane people they are. You have to forgive what they bring up in you. So whether it's a president or reality stars or whatever they happen to be, whatever you don't like, we've made celebrities out of people that have murdered their wives and a big deal about it. All cameras on such a person. It's like crazy, you know, former football stars and this and that, you know, and then people are all upset about it and getting triggered. But at the same time, man, maybe this is bringing spousal abuse to the public eye. Maybe we need to see things at a deeper level. But certainly don't worship and buy into all this celebrity stuff. Stuff that happens in our face. And if it's celebrity, it's really in our face. But there's reasons for these things. Think about it. There's reasons for this. There's reasons. The ultra-masculine world. And I'm saying I believe that we need to reinterpret these things. You know what, let's talk about a few masculine things. So bear with me if you don't like masculine things. Masculine things. One of the most masculine is the Old Testament. Man, that's just fairly intense. You know, in the Old Testament you hear, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. And Jesus is like, well, you know, love one another. It's like, wow, such a contrast. But Deuteronomy 33, it's interesting because I was on tour last week and the number 33 was starting to appear, which I get double digits a lot. But the number 33 was kind of popping into my head. And then it was in my parking spot where I parked. And then it was in my seat or whatever. You know, it was happening several times. So I'm going, okay, so I'm going to have to be aware. I wonder, you know, just open the mind to what the 33 is going to represent. And then I thought, we're going to talk about Father's Day. And then it went into my head. Deuteronomy 33, and then verse, I think it's 17, talks about unicorns. The Old Testament talks about unicorns. I think half a dozen times in the Old Testament. Yes, pretty little unicorns in the masculine Old Testament. And then if you go and research that, you're going to have most scholars going, well, they must have meant something else. It must have been rhinos, rhinoceroses. You know, yeah, the Old Testament, that's what it was. And he saweth the rhino, you know. I'm saying, guys, that the stuff we think is too masculine and not very lovable, just pause for a minute. Let's have a great Father's Day by falling in love to a new level with masculinity for a moment. The masculine Old Testament talks about unicorns. It's pretty cool. And if it's in there, if the people of Israel wrote about it, it meant to them it was historic. That something like that had to have existed once upon a time. Here's a really interesting story. I shared this with somebody for some reason a week or so ago. World War I. I'll be brief about these things, but try to breathe, okay? World War I, the #1 ace flyer, remembered throughout all time, even commemorated in a 60s song, was who? Anybody remember? Good job, the Red Baron. This guy was an expert killer. Where these pilots were knocking out 5 people, planes. Wow, 5. He had over 100. He was exponentially, like, several times greater than any other ace. Absolutely just a master at what he was doing. And one day, he took a bullet and didn't die. But the bullet lodged in his brain and couldn't be operated on. But the bullet triggered something in his mind that he says, I couldn't kill anymore. Something in me, the bullet in my head did something, and he says, and I started, still flying for a little while longer, he said, I started seeing the faces of the other pilots, panicked when they were going to crash after I shot them down. In other words, he had a conscience. Now, you could think, well, it's just a bullet. No, I'm telling you, before the bullet entered his head, that soul was done with this. He wanted something different. And he manifested learning it the hard way versus the easy way. He could have just read Thoreau or something, right? But he was in war, and he did it differently. But think about that. Who do you want to hate? Because everybody proves us wrong. Every person that looks so aggressive ends up showing. All they need is something to switch them. And all of a sudden, they can find balance. They can find a heart. So he couldn't continue this anymore. And then he eventually made a mistake, an absolutely glaring, bizarre mistake that he could have never done consciously. Because his soul was saying, I can't do this anymore. And he got shot down and died. But what's amazing is, guys, his soul, he was already a different person. And I love that. And you can say, well, war stories. There can't be any war stories that have love. Yes, there are war stories that have love. Stories of amazing courage, but also fellowship. There's a time in World War I, another masculine kind of scenario, where the soldiers from both sides of the military all set down their arms. They saw this amazing light that nobody could explain, and they felt this incredible peace that nobody understands what it was. And they say they all heard the voice, all of these soldiers on both sides, say, put down your arms. All these soldiers dropped their arms. They just dropped all their rifles, which you can be killed for that. That wasn't in their mind. They all just set down their arms and walked back to their headquarters. Now, can you imagine you're a soldier trained to do what you're told, and you're going, no, I don't think so. What do you mean, soldier, get your rifle and get back to the lines? No. There was something greater than my fear of my leaders here. And this happened, and it was a major event. I think they even made a movie about it. You can research it a bit, but imagine that. And it was supposedly Mother Mary that appeared on the battleground. Everyone, including your human father and mother and your exes and all that, everyone is awaiting someone to see them differently. It doesn't mean you should necessarily say to them, gee, I guess all that you did is over with, so I'll just let it go. I'm not saying you enable behaviors, but in our hearts, when we choose to see people differently, they start to change. And that's an amazing thing. We participate in the healing of people. So if you say, I got to forgive my father, my dad for some things, it doesn't mean you have to call and hook up and just kind of, hey, everything's just fine. You can still set your foot down. You can put your foot down and say, I want to say these things were not okay. You don't even have to call them. Just in our heart, we can choose to see things differently. We can choose to say, somewhere in this person, just like in the Red Baron, somewhere in this person, there's a light made in God's image. Weird story that I just came across the other day. there's a critic. Newspapers, man. Newspapers can be very controlling, very masculine and controlling. And once upon a time, check this one out. Once upon a time, this band that was really popular, they were called the Beatles. And they came out with this album that was really popular called Sgt. Pepper's. And this was hitting like, wow, like if they just went from Fab Four to wow, out there. And the New York Times critic panned it. He said, this is garbage. They need to get back to their pop music and let this weirdness go. Now, a New York Times music critic can make or break your life. He affected some amount of the Beatles. At that year, the Beatles had their first #2 hit. They never had a #2. They only had #1s. For the first time, they didn't go to #1. Partly because they're getting panned for that album and their creative songs that came out, right? Now think about this. Now, at some point, there's questions about why that critic didn't like that album so much. And they tried different theories. Different people had different theories because people talk about these things for some reason. So they were trying to figure out why he didn't like it and why they did this to him, because they believe it affected music of the time. There are people that wouldn't listen to it or went on the bandwagon and didn't like the album. And it affected the sales for that band and so on. Now, recently, the guy was interviewed, and here's what he said. Check this out. The masculine newspaper critic, the critical, the head that talks and judges, that's the masculine side of us, the left brain. And the guy says, well, what happened was, I believed rock and roll was supposed to be masculine. It was supposed to be the beat and kind of down and dirty, just rock and roll. And they came out with this creative, artistic album. And I hated them for it. He says, because I was gay, feminine, and I didn't want to admit it. So I panned their album because it awakened in me the realization that I'm gay, and I would not handle that. So what I did is I slammed them because I was slamming my own femininity that was coming out, saying I'm actually bisexual or gay. See what I'm saying? His own feminine, he said this whole creative feminines that was going to exist in me as a male, I could not have that. So he took it out on them. And you can rest assured that it's happening every day. Every day that a person has to overdo the masculine or the feminine, they might very well be in avoidance of some kind. The loud, obnoxious drill sergeant, maybe some of that is just overcompensation, which, we've heard before. But look at what's happened in this world. This world is a strange place, but it has no lack of judgments on these dualities or polarities, the masculine world, the feminine world. I brought a symbol of masculinity. Can I have that, please? Yeah, hold the handle. There you go. So, okay, sword. Now, masculine symbol, war, hacking each other. Well, actually, let's look at that. So the handle represents the person whose hand is at work, but it's a symbol of God's hand in our lives. The horizontal piece here represents the veil between reality and illusion. So here's the hand of God. Here's the veil. And we only are supposed to have ever raised a sword, but why? Why do we raise the sword? To do. And most of the time we go to war, we do without the hand of God, and we get our own hand involved in what we're doing. But the blade of the sword, if this is the hand of God and this is the veil of illusion, and we penetrate the veil, the sword then is the symbol of us penetrating matter. Is that making sense? And then the scabbard or sheath that would go over the sword is like the womb of the Divine Mother, who is there to protect us, who would rather say, let's stay the sword, let's not take the sword out. Let's just keep it covered and protected. So you can even penetrate matter. You can penetrate matter, but you don't have to get caught up in it. How to be in the world and not of the world. So this is a difference between being and doing. The being means the hand of God is in my life. The mother can surround the sword. I can penetrate matter, but as I penetrate matter, I'm covered by the mother. She's the womb that wraps around my presence here. What human beings learn to do is forget to be guided by the hand of God the Father and started becoming our own creators. But we're not really creators if we're not creating, because creation has to come from love, and if we're not in a loving space, we're not creating. What are we doing? We're making. So what happens is, if we were talking about chakras or right brain, left brain, we could learn to go back to being in our heart center, which is the center of the divine mother, the divine feminine. But we could be in our center like this. Like here's that veil, the cross piece of the sword. So here's that veil. Here, up here then, in my upper three chakras, is the hand of God. But do we allow the hand of God to guide us in our lives? Anytime you pick up the sword, which means anytime you pick up your hand to flip someone off, anytime you take action out here of your own accord, I need to fix something, I need to swat my children because they're not behaving. All of my actions are typically compensations for what I don't know how to achieve just by being. My actions of anger, my actions of work, even effort. I need to move this podium to the left a few feet. Oh, it's heavy. Now, the more I start moving it with me, then I'm not in the Tao. I'm not in the Zen consciousness. I'm now becoming a doer instead of a beer. And we all shifted from learning to let the Father be our guide to becoming human fathers, to then becoming resentful of human fathers. Ultimately, we have to come back to balance. Harmony. God never minds that you ever resented it, hated it. You know, God has no issues with the fact that we have issues with God or anything else. It's just that God says, I love you, come home. You know, let's wake up. So here we are, and we need to learn what's called balance. How can I come back to being? You know, the human beings exert 80 or 90% effort into everything they do, and yet only use a few percent of brain power, mind power. In other words, we're doing more than we have to do if we would just have a little ingenuity. But the ingenuity is not human cunning, it's spirit. So what we do is we learn that if I let spirit guide me in everything, even your drive to work, it can find a different route for you to take that doesn't have to be done by your effort. By your finding a favorite song on the radio without you spending 20 minutes dialing around while you're driving and endangering yourself. We can just learn to ask. It's there, but we have forgotten. We've forgotten to trust the Father. Then our human fathers sometimes weren't so nice, or human masculine images weren't so nice. So you know what it does is it makes us distrust the Divine Father. Because one comes another. They're connected. So we've lost our faith in God sometimes because of our unhealed wounds with the masculine or the feminine on earth. We no longer learn to trust. A person can have an unhealthy experience with their human mother, and it will affect the way they see the mother, the archetype of mother. The ones that'll go camping and leave all their garbage on the land. That's a person who has an unhealthy relationship with his mother or the mother. You can't love one and hate the other. It doesn't make sense. As above, so below. As within, so without. So whatever I'm feeling towards one, it's going to start leaching into my relationships with the other. If you have issues with anything masculine on Father's Day, bring it to the altar and bring it to heal. You'll be more prosperous if you come to harmony. Now, that's not to say I'm saying, that women need to become masculine or men need to become feminine. I'm saying balance. What would balance look like? Come back to love. Come back to respect for our divine creators, masculine and feminine, mother and father. Okay? So come back to harmony with the Father God, the Mother God too, but today's Father's Day. Also, with the cosmic Father. Don't tell me you love God if you're not in touch with star beings and the cosmos, because that's the cosmic Father. Don't say that you love God. Jesus says, don't say you love God but hate your neighbor. He's saying they're all connected. So don't say you love God and you pray but you don't believe in astrology, because it shows hypocrisy. Because the cosmic Father, the Father God, is reflected to us through the cosmic Father, which is the stars and the star elders and star beings. Then on earth, it's with masculine things. Oh, because I could say, honestly, I can tell you firsthand, I'm not one that really digs a lot of masculine stuff in terms of government and, all those kinds of things. All these institutions that are so harsh. I know that, in my life, I've not dug that. But I have learned to come to harmony with it. It's not how I was born, but I had to birth myself into a greater harmony with that. I loved just being a spiritual teacher. Traveling to it because it's all so spiritual. And then you people asked me to come here. And the bummer about that was, and yet not, is when I got here, they promised all I would do is teach. And I thought, that's great, nice and safe. But, because I've been touring already for 20-something years, I thought this will be great. I'll just teach, and that's good. I love teaching. But then they started asking me to attend board meetings, and writing contracts and signing things. I'm like, really? So masculine, see? But I had to do what I teach, and I had to step into that and ask how to do that with God, with love, the hand of God guiding me. As the sword penetrates matter, it's my pen on the paper having to sign things, having to do things. But how can we do without losing grace? And that's why people feel such a unique, beautiful vibe here, is because we've taken what was spiritual and didn't leave it lofty and then have to do material as though it's with a different spirit. Instead, we asked consistently, and still do, how to bring God even into the mundane things of life. How to bring God into that. I had children, man, and now they're 30s, but I had kids, and I saw immediately, I'm not going to be a daddy versus the mommy. I knew immediately, I felt in moments that I need to be the dad, I'm the dad, and the mom, I'll be the mom. Because we have everything within us. We don't we never should really affirm things like, well, ask your mother, because she deals with feminine things. That's not my nature at all. I'm going to right in there. Oh, we're playing Barbies? Okay. Get in there and, play dolls with the kids. If that's because they were girls, that's what we did. And I did other things, man. The masculine things, like they want to go on a hike. I'm like, I don't know how to go on a hike. So I had to figure it out. Okay, let's put on, it sounds simple to some, but okay, let's put on some good shoes and go for a hike. Take him through the ferns in the Northwest we lived in. Take him through the ferns and do all kinds of cool things with them. And I've shared this before, so I'll be brief, but in my naivete, it wasn't like, all right, girls, let's go for, I'm like with them. This is exciting adventure because masculine and feminine are going to be right here, right now. So the feminine was the ferns, the greenery, the beauty, the awe, the laughter, all that was there. But there were also moments that I need to exert a little bit more. So there were moments where we were walking and we would be climbing down one side of a mountain, hill or whatever, and we wanted to get to the other side without having to go all the way down. So I just took each one and tossed them to the other side. But the dad, the masculine, had to say, when you land, grab onto something so that you don't, slide down. So, take them ready, 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, grab. They'd grab roots of something, I know. It sounds a little dangerous. And they're all in therapy. But, but we'll never forget. Somebody asked me once, Michael, what do you think heaven is like? And I said, well, there's different understandings and different levels of what heaven is. I said, but humanistically speaking, my version of heaven is those hikes I used to go on with them. Like if I could have a human version of heaven, it would be the times I had with them when they were kids. It's the love, Heaven is love. And so it's not, I love cars, so heaven's going to be a room of cars. It's the love of the cars. It's the love of the children. It's the love. And those experiences I had, I still can just feel such wow to it. Simple little things. Walking. But it was such a perfect experience of love. And sometimes the tears and the feelings I get is from the absolute, because love is such an amazing feeling. I'm not crying of pain, the tears that I have in my eyes right now. I'm not crying about pain. I'm in the awe of the love. Love is a powerful feeling, and it can bring tears. Just like powerful, painful feelings can bring certain kinds of tears. The love, the awe of how beautiful. And then when you stand in front of a group of people and try to share that kind of story, you immediately feel the waves of what didn't happen for these people, some people, what didn't happen, and the loss and the hurt they feel, and the awe that other people feel. And there's all these feelings when you share stories like that. If you're not just, if I were just a kind of a cold speaker, I would just lecture. But I'm in these things when I'm doing them. So, man, all the feelings that I can feel wave back, the sounds, the sniffles, I can hear all that. But it's such a profound thing. If we do not heal our stuff with the Father, we're going to kill that love that I just described. So I refuse to forget those experiences. They get older and you forget. And, my kids sometimes say, I remember one of my children saying, Dad, I know you used to have all these great memories about us, and she's like, but I'm sorry, that's not me. And I'm like, that's fine. Because I will never allow anything my children were to do today to take away what I had yesterday. The love stays. And if you've never had any of that, it's not like I'm saying we had this perfect idealistic kind of thing. Trouble too, and divorce, and they had to deal with things like that. It's troubled stuff. But the absolute beauty of the experience with them. Hold on, guys. And if they were here, they would be laughing with me about it. They remember those things. And what's amazing is anything they've experienced that's the opposite, it's really tragic, because they know, wow, wasn't that cool? Wouldn't it be nice if we could have that more often, more consistently, right? So it becomes even for them a lesson of you can have this more consistently. Never lose the love. Never assume that all masculine goes like this, all worldly things go like that. Not all divorces have to go into the heavy masculine aggressive stuff. But don't become hyper feminine and go into a divorce court, because you get stomped on. Because the world is made up too much by the masculine mind that compensates without the hand of God. So it cuts instead of blesses. The sword was once used to also bless and knight people because it was a symbol. The whole idea of the hand of God, the world, this dark void, and the hand of God, metaphorically, reaches through into the universe and stirs the universe into activity, into manifestation. What that is it's the void means your mind. The hand of God entering the void was symbolic of the Spirit of God enters your mind. And what does it do when it reaches its hand into the universe? It creates a universe. So for you and I, those are those moments where we have these spontaneous ideas, these spontaneous inspirations. The hand of God is in you, working through you, moving through you. If you shame masculine, if you don't like masculine presidents and everybody else, if you can't come to peace with them, you'll be shutting off the divine masculine that tries to speak to you and inspire you. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have judgment and expect love. We have to come to time of harmony with God, harmony with masculinity. God's going to say to you, if you could hear it, I know that you have had some harsh experiences with masculine energy. If you've been in the military, you've seen it. If you've been involved with government, you've seen it. If you've gone through divorces and the courtroom, the whole things are designed, these things are designed to control and snuff you. But God's going, that's not me. That's the human version of hyper-masculine. Well, then we're going to go hyper-feminine. God's going, I wouldn't recommend that. Because you'll be the one, the hyper-masculine, is snuffing in the courtroom. I recommend balance. God would say, just find peace, find balance. Don't go so feminine that you're weak. Don't go masculine, so masculine that you're controlling. Find peace and I'll guide you. The hand of God will reach through the veil of illusion, penetrate this world and say, one day it'll say, stand up and be strong. The next minute it'll say, time to relax. To everything there is a season. Song by the Birds, 60s. To everything there's a season. There's a moment for everything. And that doesn't mean that you're the victim of what these moments are. It means you get to decide with God. You get to decide. You know, I'm in need of a good lawyer. You don't go and you don't necessarily have to get one that's going to go, well, let's just do some smudge in the courtroom and go in there and say, God's will be done, you know, because that world won't respect that. Show skill. And if you're in a sporting event, show skill. You don't say, well, I'll run out for a pass and I'll just kind of, I'll not even put my arms up. I'll expect a miracle and the ball will just somehow slip into my jersey as I run into the... Put your arms out too and run. And if somebody's about to hit you, move. Get in your body. The hand of God will guide you left, guide you right. It'll guide you to get in your right brain when needed, left brain when needed. But we won't be stuck in one or the other. Forgiveness and love and peace, these are powers. They're not passivities. They're powers. They're strengths. But we will never find them while resenting masculine energy in this world. So we learn to come to peace. When I did these things with my kids, it wasn't contrived. I had no idea how to parent. So I'm just, okay, God, you guide us. And to show an example of that sensitivity, every night, let's lay down, it's time for you guys to go to sleep. And they would sleep the bunk bed, the lower bed, and then a pull-out, so they're all three pretty close to each other. So every night I would go in there and I'd lay on the lower bunk, and on the lower bunk I would raise one hand up and hold the hand of the child on the upper bunk. This one that's on the lower bunk would be able to snuggle on me, next to me, and my other hand could reach the hand of the third daughter who was on the pull-out bed. So I was making contact with all three of them, equally loving all three of them, but connecting and bonding. Then I would say, now we have to do a prayer. We would do a prayer. And the prayer would be to ask God for a story. Give us a nighttime story. You know, I just am not the Three Bears kind of dad. You know, let me just break out the classics. Once upon a time, there's a girl named Goldilocks, and she ends up getting wiped out by these wild beasts that we might run into next time we're hiking. Look out, you know. It would be, I don't know, God, you guide us. And then just a couple breaths, and out it would come. I'm not a storyteller. I've learned to become a public speaker, I guess, but I wasn't a storyteller. I had no background of any kind to that. God can make you into things that you don't even know that you are, but not when you hate masculine energy or feminine energy. You have to come to peace. And because I was able to come to peace with the feminine in me, which is not how I was brought up, everything in my family, ultra masculine, which is why I didn't like so much the masculine, but had to come back and embrace it when I had to do implementing of it here in business. So when I did stories, they would come to me, guys, but you know what? There would be songs, melodies, everything. Once upon a time, and this whole story would come out. And at times I thought, God, I should have just wrote these down. They're just brilliant. They're beautiful. But they're not me being brilliant. If there's any brilliance of me at all, it's getting out of the way. And that's what's amazing. We think we have to do more, and instead we have to learn to get out of the way. The doer still has to show up, because like I said, if you're in a sporting team, you move. You don't just go, I'll just keep being right here. Go, move. So what an amazing thing to become balanced as we're coming to a close. Let Father's Day become a day of birthing over again. Let's be children that are birthed again by our Father. And let's become better fathers, birthing lives for other people. Let's birth hope for people. Let's birth inspirations for people. Somebody that says, I wanted to try something, but I don't think I can do it. Don't just gratuitously say, I know you can. Channel it. Well, what makes you think you can't do that? Well, because of this and that. Channel some guidance. Well, have you thought about this or that? That's a great idea. Start channeling those stories to your kids. Start channeling answers to friends. Start asking inside. You see somebody lost in a grocery store. You need help with anything? Well, I'm looking for such and such. And then just get an intuitive feeling. But it's not that you always have to solve the problems. Sometimes just being there to even show them that you care, to walk around the store with them is beautiful. How can I be God on earth? Not arrogant God, like a superhero, open the shirt and just in case you didn't know, I am God, I'm talking about how can I be the manifestation of love today? But love can express strong masculine and it can express soft feminine. You're not supposed to be the one asking which one to do at any given time. We're supposed to say, I don't know. Show me, God, and let the hand of God transform that sword. One of the great statements in the Bible. And they will, change their swords into plows, meaning you'll now do something productive instead of destructive. But it cannot happen while we hold issues with masculine or feminine. So let's sort of think in terms of affirming that today. How can I become a warrior and a mommy? How can I become strong and soft, intuitive and yet focused, and so on and yet so on? All sides. One apostle says, I am all things to all people, meaning, what do you need today? If God is with me, man, what could be against me? If God is with me, what limits could there be? If you're one of those people that says, I'm just spiritual and I'm creative, so finances are difficult because, a lot of creative people are just oppressed by the big bad world. You need healing. You need healing. You can do it. You can become the artist that knows how to focus and get things done in a prosperous way. And all of a sudden prosperity comes even to the artist. And the other way around. The person that thinks they know nothing but numbers and accounting starts doodling. Something starts shifting in them and something else starts birthing. Just insist on being the presence of God as best you can on earth. We are holy children of God made in God's image. And that would not include holding grievances against some archetype of masculine or feminine. How can I be the presence of love today? And sometimes the presence of love is to say no. Firmly. Getting a point across. Other times the spirit of love is like, sure, what can I do? See, it can shift. And anytime, 90% of the time, in parenting days, my kids, I would give them that, no. Never was I feeling, no, you blankety blankety blank. I would only do the no in a way that they needed to hear it so that they could get, it's a no. And that's what we can do on earth. Never really buy into it when you go and have to exert this way or that way, strong or soft. Never buy into it. I am that I am. But I'll play the game. You need a no today? No. And show that strong, get the point across. That's mastery. If you're an artist and you go into the galleries with your ultra soft and you come across like you don't have confidence, they may not take your work. It's good for you to show up and seem organized, even though when you leave you might be like, oh my God, that was really an effort. That's how I was, having to do board meetings. Like, you gotta be kidding me, But I didn't show up and say, hi, oh my God, I show up and I tried to look somewhat assembled. I'm ready. And just like school, can I borrow some paper? Because I was still me. Still not showing up. Poor guy. My 8th grade teacher had a Michael Never Bring Your Pencil Club. On the board, he had the Michael Never Bring Your Pencil Club. Michael Never Bring Your Homework Club. And then those would be, under my name, he would put people that are going to have to come in after school. So anybody that was getting punished, it was the Michael Club. Because I was totally inept when it comes to schooling and disinterested. It's not like I'm telling you a sob story about how mistreated I was. I would not do it. But if I were to have gone into my life and become a spiritual teacher and didn't know how to connect with the three-dimensional world, I don't believe I'd be as good as I am. Whatever amount of good you consider me to be, it wouldn't be the same. We all have to find that balance. Please no longer neglect or turn away from your strength. You know what I'm saying is balance, but today's Father's Day, so let me close with erring to that side. Don't deny your strength. Don't deny your focus. You don't have to become masculine to prove your point or to find balance, but find that strength inside. Be a parent that can say, no, thank you. Be someone that can say, hey, that's not going to work for me. Be someone that doesn't bargain away your body and your life and so on. There's too much of that in this world. Show some strength. I started teaching and doing what they call tirades. I did a few of those, that we posted. Tirades. And some people said, I'm not ever going to come back to unity because Michael's doing these things called tirades. Just the word scared them. And it made me want to change it to rant instead of tirade. But because it's like, why would that bother you? Heal. If you know me, you know the word tirade is a joke. It's a way of being funny. But not everybody can get that. But I'm not going to not do it just for that. Mind you, I go with the greater good. If the greater good would have been people didn't like my giving tirades or calling it tirades, I would have had no problem changing it. I probably wouldn't have been inspired in the first place to call it that. But if I needed to make adjustments, I'll make adjustments. But I know people, and I started doing tirades where I'm saying, guys, come on, knock it off in this world, the spiritual world. There are people that say that they wear Buddhist beads because it's so fashionable. I almost said something else, but they wear Buddhist beads because it's fashionable. And while they're wearing them, they'll have a beer in their hand. Wait, Buddha was telling you no alcohol. What did you miss it? No, it's convenient spirituality. Namaste on their shirt. But they'll be sleeping around like it doesn't matter. But namaste means about honoring each other. Why would you bargain your body away if you're namasteing? You need to namacease these behaviors. Bloody hell, I never know where I'm going to go with these things. And guys, lastly, we are all, remember, the children of God. Just imagine what that means. For a second, imagine what that means. Perfect, holy children of God. Not the one you see. Inside, there's a spark of light that is perfect and holy. There's a light in me that has never been molested, raped, beat up, bullied, done bullying, done raping. There's a spark in us that cannot cause or receive harm. And when we're on the spiritual path, it's not to enable the human part that is messed up and has memory. It's to learn to say goodbye to the memory and evoke the light that's beyond memory. The light that's beyond history. I have no history. It's not a state of denial. It's a light that starts to shine so bright, there's no dark places left. And if you insisted on a memory of, let me think. Yeah, you can come up with memory, but you no longer identify with them. You don't identify with masculine or feminine. And yet it's authentic. I know people that channel Christ, Yeshua, Jesus, Magdalene, and so on, and all kinds of different holy people. But think about this. If you channel them and do not embody them, you're actually causing yourself a huge quantum leap in karma. Because if you're going to make the statement that you are channeling something divine and your behaviors are not so divine, you're living a contradiction or a contrast. I wouldn't recommend it because your soul can feel that contradiction and it causes conflict inside. So instead of spouting and telling the world how you're a channel of, I think it's better to just do your best to live it. Right? To live it. I talk Christ a lot, but you don't hear me saying, hold on, everything I'm channeling is Christ, Christ, Christ. I don't do that. I just do my best to live it. And if people feel it, see it, they're great. If not, okay. But just imagine embodying this. Don't preach the anti-male, please. Let it go. Don't preach the anti-female. Don't act anti-female. But also don't let people hear you and see you acting so, bless you, so anti-masculine. let's drop that stuff. Let's just drop that stuff. Smile when they talk. I don't mean you should shame them for feeling the way they feel, but just try to become a different presence. And even without words, and even to your children, if they've already learned masculine, feminine, anti this or that, you don't have to call them all and say, yeah, listen, I messed up. I should have told you to like men more or women more, You might do that because owning it's good, but by example more than anything else. Spiritual teachers by example, parents by example, men and women by example. Be the guy in the store that helps somebody out. I say that because it's Father's Day. Let the masculine in you, even ladies, come out and lend a hand and not be afraid that people are going to shame you when you offer help. Please remember, not every guy in this world is hurtful like the ones you've known at times. Not all masculine energy is twisted and hyper masculine. There is so much love in all of us, and we have to learn to bring that forward. But if the rest of the world is arms crossed going, no, men are all this or that, then we're actually shaming half of our ability to find God again. Because God would be a healthy reflection of masculine and feminine. I pray this has made good sense. Okay? Please take a few centering breaths. Set aside the stuff of the world. Become aware spontaneously of any challenging thoughts, feelings, memories that are of a negative nature with anyone masculine. A dad, we wish he would have been a more this and that. A masculine environment, work environment that seems like they're insensitive and it's very aggressive. When it's all about sales, see, that's masculine again. When you're pushed to get straight A's, that's masculine again. Look at all the unhealthy expressions of the masculine in this world. But not to cause you harm in this moment. It's all coming to the altar in our mind so that we can transform it. This is no longer to be seen as a sword with a cutting edge. This is the world we allowed because of our own hyper-passivities and weaknesses. Our shames, our hurts. As we learn to step into our own expression of healthy, divine, masculine, all else falls away. We no longer need people to show us the hyper version of it because we're embodying it. So remember back at all these various times and start for a moment imagining you being a perfect, holy child of God. An absolute perfect balance of masculine and feminine. Where they won't ask you to work more hours for pennies. They can't because they know you'll say no. Picture yourself in your strength and your passivity balanced. An inspirer, a creator, and one that takes action. That's masculine. But if you were perfectly healthy and balanced, what would it look like? Take a minute and try to see all your former experiences changing because you're choosing to step into your divine masculine nature. Look at how many things would be different. Bullies would have backed off. People would not have taken advantage because they sense your strength. They wouldn't have tried to sell you or did sell you something for more than it was worth because they saw your strength. Notice it all changing. Magical. And we don't have to go and hide in fairy forests to be safe. It's all within our own being. This beautiful balance of masculine and feminine right within our own heart, right within our own soul. Imagine what that looks like and how it changes everything. We need not have people try to take advantage or control us because they sense our strength. And if you really have a balanced image of the masculine within yourself, do you know that you would look at disease and say, be gone? And it would have to go because you'd be confident. Be still and know I am God is a strong statement. Close with any last bits of seeing everyone and everything transformed. Even my memories of these things are changing because I'm seeing them differently. I'm taking responsibility and I'm showing up. Not today, we say to people that would cause or try to cause harm. Be gone. And yet that strong side is never truly caught up in the doing and being extra strong. Instead, the strong side is just an expression and always to protect that beautiful soft side that used to get harmed, scared, controlled. Not today. We stand as strong as Archangel Michael with his sword of light. But it's a sword of light. It doesn't harm. It simply cuts away things that are not light. Cuts away things that are illusions, like our false masks and false selves. So just feel and go into closing with an attitude of gratitude. I can see how this works. I can feel that this makes a difference. To all the beings I've ever seen in this world that were hyper-masculine, seemingly harmful, I dismiss all of you. You no longer need to play these roles for me. I love who you really are. I love the light in all beings, strong or soft, masculine or feminine, spiritual or human. I love. I love. I love. God is. I am. We are. No exclusions. All people brought to that reality. And we give deep, abundant thanks that this is so. And when you're ready, gradually stretch out a bit. Don't lose sight of the feeling inside. Keep it. Anchor it in. Remember, the world tells you that when you meditate and you become spiritual, you're hyper-passive. And that's just another lie of the world. I am that I am. Strong this minute, soft this minute, whatever's needed for the greater good. That way we all become instruments of God manifesting the greater good in every moment. All right. I pray that this has made good sense. Maybe more importantly, I pray that you can see how to integrate this. How to integrate this into your life. You know, let's be examples of a healthy father energy in the world by inspiring and being courageous and protecting that which is good. Saying no to things that are ridiculous. It's okay to say no and still be spiritual. And if you don't, you're not really spiritual. All you are is you're still hyper-passive. Okay? We're going to do our collection and do our closing song. Be as generous as you can be, please. Your donations go in the blue bags. The wicker baskets are for any extra donations you can share. And that's for things, like people of special needs that we help out, or special projects. The one we're going to work on this month is our blacktop. We're going to have that done in a matter of weeks, so we're down to our last couple of weeks of receiving donations. Those would go in the wicker baskets. Okay. All right. We're going to do our prayer for prosperity. Please remember, even if you don't have the prosperity, whether you're online watching or you're here, that may be the condition today, but it's not the truth of who you are. Is it? It's not the truth of who you are. So imagine it. Just give thanks and imagine it. Even if your hand just looks like it lays over the basket or bag, imagine that you're prosperous and that you can share, that you can give. See it happening. Feel the shift inside. I remember as a young person, man, I didn't believe I had those extra dollars to put in bags and baskets. I felt quite embarrassed as a kid, not feeling like I had anything like that. Hold your vision of what you really are instead of buying the temporary visions that our ego manifests. Okay? And if you don't know the words, it'll be projected on the screen if you're watching from far away, but also it's on your front of your bulletins if you're here. Together, please. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Right? By the way, one of my daughters texted me this morning, said, "Happy Father's Day." She said, "You're probably teaching, but happy Father's Day." And I said, "Great, thank you." And I said, and by the way, thank you for being such a great kid since the day you were born. And she wrote back, LOL. And I said, no, I'm serious. And she said, "Oh, okay, then thanks." Where and when you can, give compliments. And if you have had or seen a good masculine person, even if it's a woman, even if your mom had to step up and fill in for dad who split or whatever, thank her for being a healthy father to you, not just a healthy mother. Anybody you have ever known that's been a healthy expression of the masculine, the father, please thank them, even if it's in prayer. Thank them. So that it can water and feed their soul to know that what they were doing was good, so that they'll continue it. If we continue to think that we're not thanked or appreciated for being good moms or dads, men or female, males or females, then some people would stop doing it. And I don't want to be responsible for that, for someone thinking that it's okay to drop it. No. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Water and feed those seeds. All right? All right. Can anyone share what they learned or heard today that made the most sense? What did you hear or learn today that could be helpful to you or that made the most sense? Yes?
Masculine and feminine. There should be a divide between them. You could be both masculine and feminine. And if that's the way it should be.
Right.
It shouldn't be extreme.
That's right. No extremes, that we can be a harmonious balance between masculine and feminine. Absolutely. Anyone else? Yes?
For me, it was amazing how much I needed to hear that today about the balance.
About the balance.
And about recognizing when you're going extremely one way or the other, and recognize the transference underneath it.
Right.
So thank you. That
You're
was
welcome.
absolutely
Good.
serendipitous.
Nice.
Thank you.
Important timing for you and the importance of finding balance. Yes?
And when we see people differently, really see them differently, they change.
When we see people differently, they can change. One exercise that I've done now and again with clients, just try to imagine this. I've shared this concept before, but just try to imagine this. Sometimes I've taken a client, if it's a woman that's had a lot of harsh stuff happen with males, sit them in my lap and hold them. Just kind of hold them like cradled, right? And then I ask them to do the following. I say, now right now, after chilling for a second, I say this. Try to imagine, if you're just a soul, not a person or a body, you're a soul. Try to imagine what it's like to be a soul being held in the arms of God. And I leave them with that for a minute. They're usually like, wow, that's just, beautiful. Okay, let them have that. Then I say, now imagine you're being held by a safe, loving daddy. Now you're accessing the girl the little young girls being held sometimes for the first time in their lives by a safe, loving daddy, right? And then, after a minute of that, now just imagine being held by a safe male. And let them have that for a minute. When that's done, I ask them, what is the most consistent feeling you had throughout everything that you just experienced? Held by God, held by a daddy, and held by a male. The most constant word is safe.
Yeah.
Loved and safe. So all of us guys watching and here, try to imagine being that to the best way you can. How can I feel like God spiritually? How can I feel like a safe daddy whenever possible? And be a safe male too. How can I be loving and safe to that level that if a human being needed us, could we step up and be that? Not have our own needs, greeds, agendas, etc. To not come from male, female, to not come from stuff, wounds. You see? It's an amazing thing when people can just be held, not just physically, but energetically, to be loved and held with no stuff around it. You know, and I can say to them, and I know some people get a little scared, you know, I can feel they're apprehensive about being held for various reasons, whether it's abuses or attractions. They can have their various projections and transferences. But can we drop all that and just imagine being God or a safe daddy? And last but not least, could I have ever really accomplished that had I not believed it in my mind? That in this moment I can be that? And if I can do that, can't we all? We can all imagine being a safe mom to people who have never had a safe mother, to being a safe dad to people. And it's just, think about how big that is. If you do it just one time in your life, energetically, behaviorally, and even physically, one time in your life you were that safe person, God, a mommy, a daddy, or whatever to a person. They may have never had that before. Can you imagine the effects of that in another person's life? I don't think we should take these things lightly. Our ability to be the presence of God on earth, you know, to be goodness.